I sat in my small, dimly lit apartment in Portland, the hum of the heater filling the room with a low, almost lonely sound. My hands trembled as I held my phone, scrolling through Vanessa's Instagram feed with a mix of dread and disbelief. I had hoped, naively perhaps, that the post I dreaded would never appear. But there it was, my entire family smiling around a beautifully decorated Christmas tree. Michael, my son, looked so happy, holding Jake's tiny hand. Emma beamed in her little red dress, her curls bouncing as Vanessa adjusted her tiara. Vanessa herself wore that calm, knowing smile I had always found slightly unsettling. Even her parents, Richard and Gloria, were there, standing like pillars of approval behind her. I recognized the living room immediately, the couch, the fireplace mantel, but my chest tightened as I realized this was my son's house. The house I had helped him buy with my gift for his down payment, the place where countless holidays had once felt warm and secure, was now the backdrop of a celebration from which I was entirely absent. The caption read, "Blessed to spend Christmas with the people who truly matter." My vision blurred with tears, and I gripped the edge of the table. The words stung more than any physical blow could. Truly matter? I whispered to myself. Was I invisible? Was the mother who had raised him, who had stayed up through nights of illness and school projects, considered less than those assembled around that tree? I felt a cold pang of rejection, sharper than the winter chill that pressed against my apartment windows. I had called Michael on Christmas Eve, my voice trembling with both anticipation and unease. "Mom," he had said awkwardly, hesitating as if the words themselves were unfamiliar. "Vanessa's handling Christmas this year. It's just going to be low-key." Low-key? I laughed bitterly to myself as I stared at the photo. Low-key indeed. There were at least 15 people in that room, all smiling for the camera. My heart ached, a hollow emptiness spreading through my chest. I had imagined laughter, the sound of Emma's giggles echoing off the walls, Jake tugging at my sleeve for one more story. Instead, I spent the evening alone, my frozen dinner warming slowly in the microwave, my only company the soft hum of the refrigerator and the distant wail of carolers passing on the street below. But then, like a cruel twist of fate, something familiar caught my eye. Behind Richard's shoulder, partially visible through the doorway leading to the dining room, I noticed a flash of blue fabric. My breath caught. That's the quilt I made for Emma's birthday last month. I had delivered it personally, wrapped in love and care. I could almost feel the soft texture beneath my fingers as I zoomed in on the photo, my heart pounding. The sight of it made me ache in a new, indescribable way. A tangible piece of my love, present in the very space from which I was excluded. There was something else. On the wall in the dining room, partially obscured, hung a framed photo I didn't recognize. Vanessa, Michael, and a third person whose features were blurred in the background. Who was it? My mind raced, each possibility darker than the last. Was this some new memory I hadn't been included in? Some secret moment meant to further estrange me from the family I had devoted my life to? I sank onto the couch, my hands clutching the phone as if it were a lifeline. My chest felt tight, and I realized I had been holding my breath without noticing. Patricia had always told me to follow my intuition, to listen to the quiet voice inside when something felt wrong. And something felt very wrong. This isn't just exclusion, there's intention here. Before I could spiral further, my phone rang. Seeing Patricia's name flash across the screen was both comforting and alarming. I answered, my voice barely above a whisper. "Hello?" "Susan," Patricia said, her tone urgent, almost breathless. "I need to tell you something about Vanessa. I saw her last week at the lawyer's office downtown." I froze. My stomach turned to lead. A lawyer's office? My mind immediately went to dark places, documents, contracts, hidden plans. "Patricia, what do you mean?" My voice quivered as the first real tremors of fear crept in. Patricia's words hung in the air like a storm cloud. I can't explain everything now, but Susan, what you just saw, it's not just Christmas exclusion. There's more, much more. Be careful. I sat back, my mind reeling, the photograph on my phone now a symbol of betrayal rather than joy. My apartment felt smaller, more suffocating. I ran a hand through my gray-streaked hair, wishing desperately that someone, anyone, would tell me this was a mistake, that Michael had somehow been misled. But deep down, I knew better. The look in Vanessa's eyes in the photo, the subtle way she arranged her family, the carefully curated smiles, spoke of control, of a narrative that I wasn't meant to disrupt. I closed my eyes, letting the tears fall freely now, acknowledging the hurt and humiliation. And yet, somewhere beneath the sadness, a spark ignited, a stubborn ember of resolve. If this was a battle of wills, I would not be so easily dismissed. I was Susan, mother, grandmother, a woman who had endured loss and heartbreak and yet remained standing. My life had taught me resilience, and though fear wrapped around me like a heavy blanket, I knew I could not remain passive. I glanced at the photo one last time, committing every detail to memory. The crooked bow on the tree, the laughter frozen in time, the quilt I had made for Emma, and the unknown figure in the background. This image, this painful snapshot of exclusion, would be the beginning. It was the first puzzle piece in a story I would unravel, no matter how daunting or dangerous the path ahead might be. The call with Patricia ended with a promise. She would meet me first thing tomorrow, and I, alone in the quiet of my apartment, allowed myself one long, shuddering breath, a mix of sorrow, fear, and a strange, stubborn hope. Tomorrow, I would begin finding the truth, and I would not let them erase me from my own life. The next morning, the chill of Portland winter seemed sharper somehow, biting at my fingers as I clutched my coat tighter around me. Patricia was already at our favorite coffee shop when I arrived, sitting in the corner by the window, her usual calm demeanor replaced by visible unease. She looked smaller somehow, hunched over her mug as if the warmth of the coffee might shield her from the world's cruelty. When she spotted me, relief flickered across her face, but it was quickly replaced by a shadow of worry. "Susan," she whispered as I slid into the seat across from her. I wasn't going to say anything. Not yet. Her eyes darted around, almost afraid someone might overhear. "But after seeing how she excluded you, Vanessa was meeting with Harrison and Associates. That's an estate planning firm." My blood ran cold. Estate planning? My mind raced in disbelief. Michael was only 35. How could this involve him already? How could Vanessa, my daughter-in-law, be making such decisions about my son's home, about me? I felt a shiver run through my body, cold and sharp, as if every cell had suddenly recognized danger. Patricia reached across the table, squeezing my hand gently. "Susan, I think you need to see for yourself. Don't panic, but maybe you should know the truth before it's too late." Her voice was soft, but firm, like a lifeline tossed across turbulent waters. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. My mind made a decision that surprised even me. I couldn't sit idly while my life and Michael's future was being quietly manipulated. I would act. I would see with my own eyes what was happening. Driving to Michael's house, my hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly they ached. The streets of Portland were quiet, the morning sun casting pale gold light over frost-tipped trees. I rehearsed what I would say if anyone caught me, but I knew I wasn't leaving without answers. My emergency key rested in my pocket, a lifeline I had hoped never to use in this way. The house looked ordinary at first glance, peaceful even. The familiar scent of vanilla from Michael's kitchen drifted through the air as I stepped inside. Everything seemed as it should, too pristine, almost staged in its normalcy. but I didn't have time to be comforted by appearances. My feet carried me instinctively toward Michael's home office, the place where important documents always seemed to find a quiet home. The door was slightly ajar, as if inviting me in, or warning me. I slid it open slowly, my heartbeat echoing in my ears. Filing cabinets lined the walls, each drawer labeled with careful handwriting. Taxes, investments, receipts. I opened each one cautiously, my pulse quickening. Then, tucked among mundane folders, a label stopped me cold. Property transfer, confidential. My hands shook as I pulled the folder out, my eyes scanning its contents. I fumbled for my phone, hands trembling, and began photographing every page. The documents outlined plans to transfer Michael's house, the house I had helped him buy with my $50,000 down payment gift, into a trust. My breath caught as I read further. Vanessa's parents were named as beneficiaries. My stomach turned over in a wave of nausea and disbelief. But then I saw the letter, written in Vanessa's precise, cold handwriting. Once the transfer is complete, we can finally handle the Susan situation permanently. My parents agree she's become too much of a burden. I froze, the words stabbing me more sharply than I could have imagined. The Susan situation? I was his mother. My own blood. The idea that I could be seen as a burden, strategically removed like some inconvenient object, made my heart ache with betrayal. A noise from outside the office made me jump, a sudden sharp slam of a car door. My mind raced. Was someone home early? Panic clawed at me, yet I forced myself to remain calm. I stuffed the documents into my bag, careful to keep them intact. My breaths came fast and shallow, each one echoing the urgency of the moment. Then I heard it. Vanessa's voice, smooth and unmistakable, carried through the hallway. I know someone's been in here. The alarm system sent me an alert. My body froze, adrenaline spiking through every nerve. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but I didn't dare move too quickly, knowing that even a slight misstep could expose me. My mind raced through escape plans, each one more desperate than the last. I ducked behind the corner of the office doorway, clutching my bag of evidence to my chest. My heart pounded so loudly I thought it might give me away. The familiar warmth of the house, once comforting, now suffocating, pressed down on me. I could hear Vanessa moving, her heels clicking softly against the hardwood floor, each step a countdown to discovery. Tears pricked my eyes, not just from fear, but from the bitter realization that the woman I had welcomed into my family, the mother of my grandchildren, was orchestrating a plan that could erase me entirely. My pulse slowed only slightly when I reminded myself. I had the proof. I had the documents. And most importantly, I had the strength that came from a lifetime of perseverance, a lifetime of love and sacrifice that could never be rewritten by anyone else. I waited, every muscle tense, as her footsteps neared, and then, just as quickly as it had begun, they receded. The house was quiet again. I clutched the bag tighter, whispering under my breath, I will not let them do this. I will protect my family, even if I must do it alone. In that moment, the weight of betrayal mingled with a spark of resolve. I realized something crucial. This wasn't just about a house. This was about my dignity, my voice, my life, and I would fight to reclaim it. Taking a deep, trembling breath, I crept toward the back door, every sense alert, every nerve screaming in cautious anticipation. I had entered a world of deceit I had never imagined, and the path ahead was uncertain, dangerous, but I would follow it. For Michael, for Emma and Jake, for myself. And I knew, with a certainty that burned in my chest, that I could not stop until the truth came out. I barely made it out the back door, my legs trembling so badly I thought they might betray me. My heart was hammering, a relentless drum of panic and fear as I pressed myself against the cold wooden siding of the garden shed. The early morning light cast long, sharp shadows, and I felt exposed, yet invisible all at once, a fragile figure hidden in plain sight. Every breath I took was shallow, almost painful, as I strained to listen, waiting for any sound of pursuit. Through the narrow gap in the shed, I could see Vanessa moving through the house, her movements precise and deliberate. She checked each room, opening closets, peering behind furniture, her phone pressed tightly to her ear. "Yes, Richard," she said, her voice calm yet commanding. "I'm sure someone was here. We need to move faster on the plan." The words struck me like a cold blade. The plan? What plan? The realization that my own son's wife was orchestrating something so calculated, so methodical, made my stomach churn with a mixture of fear and determination. I watched as she paused, looking around the living room with that practiced, controlled expression she always wore so effortlessly. My mind raced. Every laugh she had faked, every innocent gesture she had offered in front of Michael or the children suddenly felt like a calculated act, a thread in a tapestry of manipulation I had only just begun to see. And yet, I had no time to dwell. Once she left, I waited until I was certain she had driven off before I dared to move, creeping along the garden path to my car. The drive to Patricia's house was a blur. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles turned white, and every red light felt like an eternity. I couldn't stop thinking about the folder in my bag, the fragile papers that held not just evidence, but the key to my life, to my dignity, and possibly to my freedom. When I arrived, Patricia's face lit up with relief, but her eyes quickly took on that serious, concerned look I had come to recognize. I spread the documents across her kitchen table, the papers fluttering slightly in the morning breeze from the open window. My hand shook as I began pointing out the pages I had photographed at Michael's house. Patricia leaned in, her eyes scanning each sheet carefully. Then suddenly, she gasped. "Susan," she whispered, her voice tight with shock, "look at this signature page. This isn't just about the house." I froze. Her words made my chest tighten. I looked down at the page she indicated. There it was, in Michael's unmistakable handwriting, a power of attorney document already signed. Vanessa would have complete control over his medical and financial decisions. My throat went dry. I had never imagined that my own son, the boy I had raised with love and care, could be drawn into something so sinister without even realizing it. But the horror didn't stop there. Patricia picked up another document and handed it to me with trembling hands. My eyes fell on the brochure for a care facility, the words written in neat, unfamiliar handwriting: Sunset Meadows, Memory Care, Long-Term Placement Options. And at the top, in Vanessa's familiar script, was my name. My pulse quickened, my breath caught in my chest. They were planning to put me in a memory care facility? I don't have dementia. I'm not sick. The thought of being stripped of my independence, of being isolated from my family under the guise of care, made me feel a mix of fury, despair, and disbelief. Patricia's voice shook as she handed me yet another paper. It was a psychological evaluation request form with Vanessa's notes scrawled across the top: confusion, forgetfulness, inability to manage finances. My hands flew to my mouth. I remembered now, all those little moments, innocuous at the time, when Vanessa had deliberately asked me repetitive questions or pressed me on minor details. Each time I faltered, she had made a show of concern in front of Michael. "Mom forgot we talked about this," she would say, her voice dripping with feigned care. The memory made my skin crawl. Patricia leaned closer, her eyes wide and serious. "Susan, she's building a case to have you declared incompetent." Her words hung in the air like smoke, suffocating and inescapable. I felt a shiver run through me, but beneath the fear, a fire ignited. This wasn't just cruelty. This was meticulous, premeditated manipulation. The Christmas exclusion, the laughter I was denied, the deliberate isolation, it had all been a way to document my supposed deteriorating relationships. My anger and sorrow mingled into a fierce resolve. We spent hours poring over every page, every note, every signature. The weight of betrayal settled over me like a physical burden, but so did clarity. I began to understand the depth of Vanessa's strategy, and with understanding came determination. I would not be silenced, I would not be hidden, and above all, I would protect myself, my children, and my grandchildren. Just as I began to plan my next steps, my phone rang. The screen lit up with Michael's name. I swallowed hard and answered, my voice steady despite the whirlwind of fear inside me. "Mom," he said, his voice hesitant, layered with concern. "We need to talk. Vanessa and we're concerned about you. We think you should see a doctor. Tomorrow. We've already made the appointment." My heart sank. Relief, fear, and betrayal collided inside me, forming a knot that I couldn't unravel. I realized then how deeply Vanessa had controlled the narrative, how expertly she had manipulated both my son and the perception of my mental state. But I also realized something else. The fight had only just begun. I had evidence, and with Patricia's help, I could fight back. I would not be silenced, not now, not ever. As I ended the call, I felt a mix of dread and determination settle over me. Tomorrow would bring confrontation, courage, and perhaps the first step toward reclaiming my life. And I knew, in the deepest part of me, that I was ready. I told Michael I'd think about the appointment, carefully buying myself a little breathing room. Every fiber of my being screamed against it. But I knew patience was a weapon I had to wield. I needed time to plan, to understand, to arm myself against the meticulously constructed trap that Vanessa had set for me. Michael nodded, his expression conflicted, torn between trust in his wife and love for his mother. I caught the fleeting moment of guilt in his eyes, and it gave me a small, flickering sense of hope. That night, Patricia and I settled in at my apartment, a fortress of research materials. Coffee cups littered the table, papers and folders piled high, the soft glow of my laptop illuminating our determined faces. The hours passed like minutes as we dug into every detail we could uncover. I had always trusted Vanessa, had welcomed her into my family with open arms, and now every small revelation felt like a punch to the chest. But the truth, once uncovered, had a power that fear could not suppress. We started with her parents, Richard and Gloria. The public records were damning. Bankruptcy filings from 3 years ago revealed that they had lost their home in Seattle. A sense of vindictive clarity began to form in my mind. They needed stability. They needed resources. And now they had my son's house in their sights. Patricia's eyes widened as she scrolled through more information. "Susan," she said, her voice trembling, "look at this. Vanessa has 3 credit cards maxed out, $87,000 in debt. They need Michael's house." She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. "And your son. He makes good money as an engineer. You're the only obstacle." The words hit me like a cold wave. I thought of the $50,000 I had given Michael for his down payment, a gift from a mother to her son to help him build a future. That gift suddenly took on a new significance. It made me a creditor of sorts, someone with legal standing. I could fight. I could protect myself and my son. The realization sparked a fire of determination deep within me. I contacted Margaret Chen, a lawyer I had known for years. Her voice, calm but grave, carried the weight of professional authority. "Susan, this is elder financial abuse," she said, "and fraud. But we need more evidence before we can move. Documentation, recordings, anything that shows intent and manipulation." Her words reinforced what I already knew. This was not just a family spat, not just hurt feelings. It was a carefully executed scheme to control, isolate, and exploit me. Margaret suggested a practical step: record my next conversation with Vanessa. I felt a flicker of apprehension, but also resolve. I would gather proof, face Vanessa directly, and maintain the upper hand. The next morning, I invited Vanessa to lunch, framing it as a cordial attempt to clear the air about Christmas. Margaret had provided a small, discreet recording device, clipped neatly beneath my coat. Every nerve in my body hummed with tension, every instinct alert for the slightest slip. I practiced calm, warmth, and civility, tools as crucial as any evidence I could gather. Vanessa arrived, radiant in a red dress that accentuated her meticulous appearance. She smiled, a smile designed to charm, disarm, and manipulate all at once. "Susan," she said, her voice sugary and soft, "we just thought you'd be more comfortable at home. Christmas is so chaotic with young children." I nodded gently, allowing a faint smile to mask the storm inside me. "I understand, Vanessa, but I have to ask, I saw you at an estate lawyer's office. Is everything okay with Michael?" My voice was soft, almost tentative, but laced with intent. Her smile faltered, just for a fraction of a second, and it was enough to make my pulse race. "Oh, that. We're just doing some normal adult planning. Nothing for you to worry about," she said, her tone carefully controlled. But I sensed the imperceptible crack. "And the house?" I pressed gently, letting my curiosity appear innocent. "Michael mentioned something about a trust?" Her eyes narrowed slightly, and a shadow passed over her expression. The warmth she projected melted into cold calculation. "Susan," she said, her voice low, precise, and icy, "I think it's time we discussed your memory problems more seriously. In fact, Michael and I have decided you need a full cognitive evaluation. Tomorrow. It's already arranged." A chill ran down my spine. The trap was deeper than I had imagined. Vanessa's words were clinical, rehearsed, and utterly devoid of empathy. Her eyes, so often bright with calculated charm, were now sharp and unwavering, as if she had already mapped out every possible outcome and ensured I would comply. My heart hammered in my chest, not from fear alone, but from the urgency that flooded my mind. I had to act, and I had to act wisely. Yet beneath the fear, I felt a spark of clarity. I had evidence. I had a lawyer. And most importantly, I had my own mind, sharp and unyielding, capable of seeing the truth and holding on to it. Vanessa could plan, scheme, and manipulate all she wanted, but she had underestimated my resolve. As we finished our lunch, I felt a strange combination of dread and empowerment. The world she had tried to construct, a world where I was confused, dependent, and silenced, was beginning to crumble. Every word she spoke, every fake smile she offered, would now serve as proof of her intentions. Driving home, I rehearsed what I would do next. Recording, documentation, strategic meetings with Margaret, and above all, patience. Vanessa had drawn a map, but I was now reading it, and I would navigate it carefully, deliberately, until the end. I arrived at my apartment, the weight of the afternoon pressing down on me, yet within that weight, a growing sense of determination. The fight was only beginning, and I knew, with every fiber of my being, that I would not be silenced, not now, not ever. I took a deep breath, feeling my pulse spike as Vanessa's words hung in the air. "An evaluation? I suppose if you think it's necessary." I let my voice trail, trembling just enough to seem uncertain, fragile. I could see the satisfaction in her eyes immediately. The smile that curved her lips was small, predatory, and she leaned slightly closer as if to reassure me. But it was the reassurance of a cat observing a mouse. "It's for your own good," she said, her tone honeyed, as though she genuinely cared. "We love you and want to make sure you're safe." I nodded meekly, keeping my expression soft, my hands folded in my lap. But inside, my mind was sharp, calculating. Every word she spoke, every inflection in her tone, was being captured by the small recording device Margaret had provided. It was my silent witness, the only neutral observer in a room where smiles were masks and politeness was weaponized. That evening, Margaret and I sat in my apartment, the recording device safely connected to her laptop. I pressed play, my stomach twisting as Vanessa's voice filled the room. Margaret's brow furrowed deeper with each passing second. By the time the recording ended, her face had hardened into a mask of grim determination. "She's manipulating you into compliance," Margaret said slowly, letting the words settle. "Tomorrow's evaluation is almost certainly step one in declaring you incompetent." Every word she said, every reason she gave, it's all designed to paint you as confused, vulnerable, dependent. I swallowed, the fear twisting my chest. But Margaret's presence grounded me. She outlined the counterplan carefully, her voice calm, precise, and unwavering. "You will go to the appointment, but you will not be alone. I will have someone there, observing, documenting everything, every question, every interaction, every nuance. Nothing will go unrecorded." We rehearsed. I practiced polite compliance while maintaining clarity in my responses. I memorized dates, phone numbers, the names of acquaintances, every detail that might later be twisted against me. Margaret reminded me, "Susan, confidence and accuracy are your allies. Don't let them see the doubt they hope to exploit." The next morning, I arrived at the medical office, my hands clutching my coat tightly, the cold air outside contrasting sharply with the tension building inside me. This was not a routine checkup. This was a carefully orchestrated evaluation, designed to test the limits of my independence. I knew it. Vanessa was already there, seated in the waiting area, her posture immaculate, her eyes scanning the room with controlled vigilance. Michael sat beside her, his expression strained. He wouldn't meet my eyes. My heart ached as I saw my son trapped between love for me and loyalty to his wife. I wanted to reach out, to reassure him, but I had to remain composed. "Michael," I said quietly, leaning close as we waited. "Do you really think I need this?" My voice was soft, tinged with a vulnerability I did not feel, just the outward projection Vanessa expected. Before he could answer, Vanessa cut in smoothly, her voice crisp, rehearsed. "Susan, you've been forgetting conversations, getting confused about dates. We're worried about you living alone." I nodded slowly, letting the words sink as if they carried truth. Inside, though, I felt a cold fire. I knew this was her attempt to create a paper trail of incompetence, to manipulate both the doctor and Michael. But I was ready. Every question, every accusation would be met with clarity, precision, and calm. The evaluation began. Dr. James Thornton, a psychiatrist I had never met before, greeted me warmly, his tone professional but distant. He asked questions, strange and pointed. Dates, events, names, phone numbers. It was obvious he was testing me, trying to identify gaps in memory, hesitation, or confusion that could be spun into evidence of incapacity. I answered every question carefully, clearly, with deliberate attention to detail. I recited phone numbers I had memorized, recalled events down to exact days, corrected small inaccuracies with confidence. With each response, I felt Vanessa's composure falter. The fake sympathy, the carefully practiced smiles, they slipped ever so slightly. I noticed the flash of frustration in her eyes, a twitch in her hand as she sipped her coffee. She was human, after all. After the evaluation concluded, Vanessa pulled Dr. Thornton aside. I couldn't hear every word, but the tension in her posture, the tight press of her lips, the low, urgent whisper, it all made sense. I caught fragments. "She's having a good day, but you should see her other times." I exhaled slowly, letting a surge of relief wash over me. The trap was there, but I had not fallen into it. I had answers. I had evidence. I had truth on my side. As we left the office, Michael finally found a moment to speak to me alone, his eyes heavy with guilt and fear. "Mom," he whispered, voice trembling, "I need to tell you something. Vanessa doesn't know I'm talking to you, but I found something in her emails that scared me." My heart stopped. The weight of anticipation, fear, and protective instinct pressed down on me. What could it be? I could feel the pulse in my temples, the rapid beat of my heart. This was the tipping point, the moment when all the planning, all the careful documentation would converge. Michael's hand brushed mine briefly, a silent apology and a promise all at once. I squeezed it, drawing strength from his presence. He was on my side. Despite everything, I was not alone. Vanessa's plan, meticulously designed, was beginning to unravel, and I was ready to confront the truth, whatever it might reveal. The park was quiet, a rare stillness that seemed to stretch the minutes into something almost sacred. I hadn't realized how much tension I'd been carrying until I finally exhaled, letting the crisp Portland air fill my lungs. Michael led me along a winding path shaded by tall maples, the faint rustle of leaves beneath our feet the only sound aside from our tentative breathing. For the first time since Christmas, I felt almost safe. Almost. "Mom, I've been such a fool," he said, his voice breaking mid-sentence, jagged and raw. He stopped, turning to face me. His eyes were glistening, the guilt carved into the lines of his face, the weight of unspoken truths pressing down on him. I reached out instinctively, taking his hand, feeling the warmth, the familiar pulse, the boy I once knew in the man he had become. What happened, Michael?" My voice trembled, though I tried to keep it steady. He drew a shuddering breath and swallowed hard. "Last week, I used Vanessa's laptop. I shouldn't have, I know. But I saw emails between her and her father." He hesitated, pain flickering across his expression. "I saw everything, Mom. Every plan, every detail of what they've been doing to isolate you." He pulled out his phone and turned the screen toward me. The screenshots showed email threads, meticulous and chilling in their clarity. Vanessa's words were deliberate, strategic, cold. "We need to move forward carefully with Mom, ensure she's compliant. By the time Michael realizes, it will be too late," one email read. Another detailed schedules, subtle manipulations, and instructions to document every lapse in memory to support the narrative of incompetence. My stomach dropped. My hands trembled as I scrolled through the messages. The shock, the betrayal, the sheer premeditation. It was almost unbearable. These were not mistakes. These were calculated steps to control my life, my independence, my son's trust, and eventually, my very home. "They want the house," Michael said quietly, his voice carrying the weight of disbelief, "to refinance, pay off their debts. And they need me to believe you're incompetent, so I won't question putting you in a facility." "Mom, I feel so guilty for going along with it, even unknowingly." I shook my head, tears pricking the corners of my eyes. "But the Christmas exclusion. Why did you go along with it? Why didn't you call me?" My voice was soft, tinged with hurt, and the hurt cut deeper than the shock of discovery. Michael's shoulders slumped, a physical manifestation of the shame he carried. She told me that you said you wanted a quiet Christmas alone, that you specifically requested not to be around chaos." "Mom, I believed her. I should have called you directly. I should have known." His voice broke completely, ragged and trembling. "I failed you, Mom." I wanted to reach out, to soothe him, to hold him close and remind him that mistakes do not erase love. I squeezed his hand, feeling the tremor of fear and guilt vibrating between us. "Michael, she's been manipulating both of us for months," I whispered, the realization settling over me like a shadow. "Months, and we didn't see it coming because she knew exactly what to say, exactly how to twist things." He nodded slowly, eyes dark and haunted. "There's more," he said, his voice dropping lower, ominous. I think she's been poisoning me against you deliberately. I think she might have been putting something in my coffee every morning." I froze, my blood running cold. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice tight, barely above a whisper. "I've been feeling foggy," he admitted, his hands fisting unconsciously at his sides. "Agreeable to everything. Out of sorts, confused at times. But last week, I stopped drinking the coffee she makes me each morning. And suddenly, I can think clearly again. Mom, I think she's been drugging me." A chill ran down my spine. The horror of it struck me like ice. Vanessa may have been deliberately poisoning her own husband, manipulating him chemically to ensure compliance, to erase the space for doubt, to weaken the bond between mother and son. I felt my chest tighten, the panic building alongside a surge of righteous anger. "We need to test your coffee," I said firmly, my mind already racing, connecting the dots, planning every next step. "We need to be careful, smart, and we need proof, solid evidence." Michael nodded, relief mingled with fear evident in his expression. "Yes, we'll do it secretly. I'll gather evidence from inside, step by step, carefully. We can't let her see that we know." The park seemed to shrink around us, the world narrowing to the urgency of the moment, the fragile alliance between mother and son. I felt a bond reinforced not by words alone, but by trust, by shared fear, by love and determination that had survived manipulation, deceit, and betrayal. And then, almost as if the universe itself had timed it for maximum impact, Michael's phone buzzed violently, the sudden vibration startling both of us. He glanced down, eyes widening in alarm. A message from Vanessa appeared, short, demanding, and icy. "Where are you? Your mother's doctor just called me. He's ready to sign the incompetency papers. We need you to come home and sign the facility admission forms now." The blood drained from my face. My hands gripped his arm, heart hammering. She was moving faster than we anticipated, pushing the narrative forward, closing the net around us. Michael looked at me, his expression a mixture of fear and determination. "Mom, we have to move quickly. We have to be smart. If she gets those papers signed, if she brings the facility paperwork, it could be over before we even start." I swallowed hard, my mind spinning, but beneath the fear, a surge of clarity and purpose rose. Months of manipulation, months of cruel planning could not break us. They had underestimated the strength of a mother's love, a mother's intuition, and her refusal to be erased. I straightened, taking a deep breath, letting the resolve settle in my bones. "Then we move carefully," I said, my voice low but steady. "We do this right, and we make sure she can't hurt anyone else like this again. Not me, not you, not Emma or Jake." Michael nodded, his grip on my hand tightening. "Together," he said, "we do this together." And in that moment, sitting on a quiet bench surrounded by autumn leaves, I felt the first spark of hope in weeks. A plan, a path forward, a chance to reclaim my life and protect my family. Vanessa's web of lies was intricate, but we were ready to untangle it, one careful, deliberate step at a time. After the chilling revelation in the park, Michael and I understood the stakes with terrifying clarity. Vanessa wasn't just manipulating our emotions, she was orchestrating a full-scale scheme, one that threatened my home, my independence, and even my sense of reality. There was no room for hesitation. Every hour counted. Every second I delayed could bring her closer to securing those incompetency papers, closer to erasing me from my own life. "Mom, we need to act fast," Michael said, his voice tight with urgency as we left the park. "Before she has a chance to forge my signature or manipulate me in person. If she does, everything we've discovered will be for nothing." I nodded, feeling a surge of adrenaline and dread. My hands clenched at my sides, a mixture of fear and determination propelling me forward. "Then we do this carefully," I said. "No mistakes, no half measures. Every step has to be deliberate." He drove us home in silence, the weight of the situation pressing on both of us. Once we were inside, he took the precaution I hadn't thought of. He secretly poured his morning coffee, the one Vanessa prepared with such routine charm, into a separate container. "This will go straight to the lab," he said. "We need proof, solid proof." I felt a cold chill run through me as I watched him carefully seal the container, realizing fully that Vanessa had been weaponizing the most mundane parts of daily life against him, and by extension, against me. The familiar aroma of coffee, once comforting, now carried with it a sinister undertone. 3 days later, the results came back. Benzodiazepines, anxiety medication, drugs designed to create confusion, compliance, and dependency. "She's been drugging me for months," Michael whispered, horror etched into every line of his face, "making me think I was just stressed from work, making me doubt myself, making me doubt you, Mom." I swallowed hard, trying to steady my racing heart. The betrayal, the manipulation, the sheer audacity of it left me trembling, but it also strengthened the resolve inside me. Vanessa had underestimated both of us. She had underestimated the bond between mother and son, the instincts that could not be silenced by chemical fog or deception. Meanwhile, I was not idle. Margaret, my lawyer friend, had been working tirelessly alongside Patricia and me to uncover every shred of evidence we could find. We dug into Vanessa's family history, unearthing a troubling pattern. Richard, her father, had previously been investigated for elder fraud in Washington state. The case had been dropped, charges never filed, but the investigation alone was enough to signal a pattern of questionable ethics and possible criminal intent. Patricia, ever thorough, scoured social media and discovered posts from Vanessa's sister, cryptic warnings about what their parents were capable of. "Susan," Patricia said, voice low with awe and horror, "this isn't just Vanessa. This is a family operation. They've done this before. You're not imagining it." I felt a shiver run down my spine as the pieces began to fit together. This wasn't a random act of cruelty. It was a calculated generational pattern. And now, finally, we had the evidence to challenge it. Margaret filed a protective order immediately and alerted Adult Protective Services, ensuring that the authorities were aware of the threat before Vanessa could move further. But Vanessa, cunning and perceptive, was already becoming suspicious. Michael recounted a confrontation she'd had with him earlier that day. "Why are you suddenly questioning everything? Why won't you sign the papers?" she demanded, her tone sharp, laced with accusation. "I just want to make sure we're doing the right thing for my mother," Michael said carefully, buying time. His words were measured, controlled, but the tension in the room was palpable. Vanessa's mask slipped, if only for a moment, revealing the anger beneath the polished facade. "Your mother is a burden, Michael. My parents have been so generous, helping us plan for the future. Don't you dare ruin this now," she spat, venom dripping from her words. That night, still reeling from the confrontation, I received an anonymous email that made my heart skip a beat. The subject line was simple: urgent, evidence enclosed. I clicked with trembling fingers and the attachment loaded, a video file. The footage was from Michael's home security camera, recorded just days earlier. My stomach dropped as I watched, horror gripping me with icy fingers. Vanessa appeared on screen, carefully crushing pills in her hand before stirring them into Michael's coffee maker. Every motion was deliberate, precise, and chillingly casual, like she had done it countless times before. I sat frozen, tears pricking the corners of my eyes. The enormity of what we were dealing with hit me full force. It wasn't just manipulation. It wasn't just fraud. It was active, premeditated endangerment. And if we hadn't acted when we did, the consequences could have been catastrophic. A second email followed immediately, the sender revealing themselves in the message. "Susan, this is Gloria, Vanessa's mother. We need to meet. There's something about my daughter you need to know. She's done this before, and someone died." I sat back in my chair, the room spinning around me. The words were stark, terrifying, but they also confirmed what I had begun to suspect. This pattern, this cruelty, this manipulation had a precedent. And now, finally, I had an ally from within the family itself, someone willing to help us unravel the truth. I called Michael immediately, my voice urgent but controlled. We have to meet Gloria. We have to hear everything. If she's telling the truth, this could be bigger than we imagined, and it could save others too. He nodded, his face pale but resolute. I'll go with you, Mom. We'll do this together, step by step. We won't let her hurt anyone else. Not you, not me, not Emma or Jake. The night stretched long, sleepless, filled with planning, whispered strategies, and the kind of fear that sharpens the mind instead of paralyzing it. Vanessa was clever, but she hadn't counted on us being equally determined, equally relentless. And as I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the video footage, I realized something profound. The moment of fear, of betrayal, of near defeat was also the moment where our courage crystallized. We weren't victims, not anymore. We were witnesses, we were advocates, and most importantly, we were ready to act. The pieces of Vanessa's web were coming together, and for the first time I could see a path forward, one that would expose the truth, reclaim what was stolen, and prevent her from hurting anyone else ever again. I parked across the street from the diner, my stomach twisting in knots. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to get back in the car and forget this meeting ever existed. Gloria, Vanessa's mother, was waiting inside, and yet I didn't know if I was walking into an ally or a trap. Vanessa's web of manipulation was so intricate, so carefully spun, that I couldn't trust any unexpected contact without a shadow of doubt. Taking a deep breath, I pushed open the door and saw her sitting in a corner booth, a cup of coffee steaming before her. Gloria looked older than her years, her once lively eyes dulled by guilt and fear. Her hands trembled slightly as she gestured for me to sit. "Susan," she said softly, her voice breaking. "I'm so sorry. I should have stopped this before it started." The words hit me like a fist. I wanted to ask how, why, but all I could do was sit and wait for her to speak, knowing instinctively that whatever she was about to reveal could change everything. She took a deep breath, glancing around the diner as though making sure we were truly alone. "Vanessa, she's done this before, Susan. Long before Michael, long before Seattle even. There was a man, Thomas, her first husband. He was older, wealthy, had no children, and Vanessa, she convinced him that his own sister was trying to steal from him. Isolated him completely. He had no one left to trust but her." My heart thudded painfully in my chest. What happened to him?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper, afraid I already knew the answer. Gloria's gaze dropped to her coffee, hands clutching the cup as if holding herself together. "He died. An accidental overdose of his heart medication. Vanessa inherited everything. But Thomas's sister investigated after his death. That's why we had to leave Seattle. She never faces consequences because she covers her tracks meticulously. But I kept proof. I swallowed hard, my throat tight with a mixture of fear and disbelief. Why are you telling me this now?" Tears pooled in her eyes, and she looked at me with a raw, urgent honesty that made my chest ache. Because I saw how she looks at those children, Emma and Jake. Already she's talking about them being burdens once the house is secured. And Richard, he's been going along with it, desperate to please her, but I can't. Not anymore. Not when children are involved. She slid a manila envelope across the table toward me. My hands shook as I opened it, revealing a collection of documents: Thomas's death certificate, investigator reports, letters from his estranged sister, bank statements, and photographs. Each one detailed the manipulations, the isolation, the financial exploitation that had ended in tragedy. "Vanessa doesn't know I kept these," Gloria said, voice trembling. "I've been protecting her, but I can't protect her from herself anymore. You need this, Susan. You and your family, especially Michael and the kids, need to know." I felt the weight of the envelope in my hands, a mix of terror and vindication coursing through me. Finally, we had tangible evidence of a pattern, a trail of fraud, elder abuse, and potentially even murder. My mind raced, trying to piece together how we could use this without tipping Vanessa off, how we could protect ourselves and the children while bringing the truth to light. Margaret, when I brought everything to her office, barely glanced at the papers before her face went grim. "Susan, this is substantial, criminally substantial. This is more than elder financial abuse. This is a pattern of calculated, potentially lethal fraud. We take this to the district attorney immediately. But," she added, leaning forward, her eyes locking on mine, "we still need Vanessa to incriminate herself more directly. Concrete evidence of her intentions toward you. Without that, the case is stronger in theory than in practice." I nodded, thinking quickly. My mind flipped through the options, the possibilities. Then it struck me. A plan forming with frightening clarity. "What if we stage a family gathering?" I asked. "A belated Christmas celebration, something that looks innocent, like I'm trying to make amends. But we use it to create a situation where Vanessa's true intentions come out. She won't be able to maintain her facade if all eyes are on her and her parents are present." Margaret considered it for a moment, then nodded. "It's risky, but it could work. We need to make sure there are recording devices, witnesses, and that you're protected legally. I can coordinate the evidence collection." Michael was immediately on board. "Mom, we can do this together. I'll help set it up. We'll invite everyone, including Gloria and Richard. And we'll make sure it's just you, me, and the people we trust at first. We create the scenario, then let her reactions speak for themselves." Hope flickered in my chest for the first time in weeks, but it was quickly tempered by a new wave of fear. As we began planning the gathering, coordinating guests, and preparing the evidence, my phone buzzed insistently. I glanced at the screen, and my stomach dropped. Dr. Thornton, the psychiatrist who had evaluated me. I opened the message, my hands trembling, and read the words aloud. "Susan, the evaluation has been submitted. You are declared incompetent, effective the day of your appointment. Commitment proceedings have already begun. Court hearing scheduled in 48 hours. I sank into my chair, my mind spinning. 48 hours. That was all the time we had to stop Vanessa from seizing control, from executing her plan, from legally committing me to a facility I had never needed. The weight of urgency pressed down on me, suffocating, yet galvanizing. Michael leaned over, gripping my hands tightly. "Mom, we can still fight this. We have evidence, we have witnesses, and we have Margaret. But we need to act fast. Everything we've prepared, everything we've learned, it all comes down to the next 48 hours. I drew a shaky breath, trying to summon courage I didn't know I had. Fear, anger, and determination surged together, intertwining until I could feel the fire of resolve burning inside me. Vanessa might have thought she could outmaneuver us, manipulate us, silence us, but she had underestimated one thing: the bond between mother and son, and the sheer force of truth when it refuses to be buried. The plan had begun. The clock was ticking, and the next 48 hours would determine everything. The days leading up to the gala were a blur of preparation, adrenaline, and fear. Margaret worked tirelessly to get an emergency court date moved up, but we knew that even if the law was on our side, we needed more than just paperwork. We needed witnesses, a public stage, and undeniable evidence. So I made a bold, almost reckless decision. I would turn a family confrontation into a public declaration. Instead of inviting everyone to my home, I rented a beautiful ballroom downtown. It was elegant, sophisticated, and, most importantly, visible. Invitations went out to community leaders, Michael's colleagues, our friends, and yes, to Vanessa and her parents. The gala would be framed as a charitable event, a New Year's celebration for Portland Elder Care Advocacy. Patricia worked around the clock beside me, turning my last savings into decorations, programs, and catering. In 3 days, the venue was transformed into a sparkling testament to hope, dignity, and vigilance. Every detail, from the centerpieces to the lighting, was intentional. Everything had to be perfect so that no one could doubt my competence, no matter how malicious Vanessa's whispers had been. The invitation to Vanessa was deliberate, formal, polite, and framed as an olive branch. I'd be honored if you and Michael would attend as my special guests. I want to start the new year with family unity. Vanessa could not refuse without appearing cruel or petty, particularly with Michael's professional network present. The night of the gala, I looked in the mirror and barely recognized myself. The deep blue gown was elegant but understated, my hair perfectly styled, and my makeup professional. I stood a little taller, exhaling every shred of self-doubt I'd accumulated over months of manipulation. I wasn't the frail, forgetful woman they had tried to portray. I was Susan, alive, present, and resolute. When Vanessa arrived, I saw the annoyance flash across her face immediately. She had expected a subdued, compliant version of me, someone who could be dismissed with a few cruel words or a calculated glance. Instead, she was met with poise, confidence, and radiance. Her eyes darted nervously as she took in the room, filled with Portland's community leaders and friends, people who had no idea about the danger I had faced, yet whose judgment now mattered. I stepped onto the small stage, my heart hammering, but my voice steady. "I want to thank everyone for coming tonight," I began. "This cause is personal to me because recently I learned about the vulnerability of older adults to financial abuse and manipulation." I noticed Vanessa blanch. Her lips pressed tightly together as if to hold back a retort, her eyes flicking to Michael, who avoided her gaze. She knew this was not the homebound, flustered woman she had expected. "And I'd especially like to thank my daughter-in-law, Vanessa," I continued, letting my words cut through the tension, "who has taught me so much about family dynamics." I paused, letting the audience react, and then I signaled to the event staff. The screens around the room flickered to life, and suddenly, the documents were displayed for everyone to see. The property transfer papers, the power of attorney, the brochures for the memory care facility, and the emails detailing the plan to declare me incompetent. Gasps rippled through the crowd. People whispered to each other, eyes wide with disbelief. Margaret stood at my side, calm but vigilant, while I held my gaze on Vanessa, who had turned ghostly white. The room was silent except for the faint hum of disbelief. "These are real documents," I said firmly, my voice carrying across the hall, "part of an elaborate scheme to have me declared incompetent and to steal my son's house. My family's trust, my son's inheritance, and my dignity were all at stake. But today, the truth is here for everyone to see." I looked around the room, catching the eyes of colleagues, friends, and strangers. Their shock gave me courage. This was more than a personal vendetta. This was a declaration that manipulation and abuse would not be tolerated, and that secrecy would no longer protect the guilty. Vanessa's face twisted with fury. She stood abruptly, her voice rising in anger. "This is insane! Susan clearly is incompetent if she's making these wild accusations in public." Her attempt to sway the crowd was almost laughable, her carefully constructed persona crumbling under the weight of exposure. But then Gloria stood, stepping out from her seat near the back. Her voice was strong, urgent, and unflinching. "No, Vanessa, it's time everyone knew the truth about what you did to Thomas." The room froze. All eyes turned toward her. Gasps filled the air as Gloria held up a small stack of documents: Thomas's death certificate, investigative reports, and letters that confirmed Vanessa's previous pattern of manipulation and exploitation. The weight of reality hit Vanessa hard. For the first time, her mask cracked in front of an audience too large to intimidate. I felt a rush of vindication, tempered by adrenaline. The public setting forced Vanessa to defend herself in front of witnesses, while Gloria's revelation confirmed that this was not an isolated incident, but a pattern of abuse and deceit. Michael, still seated but now fully attentive, leaned toward me and whispered, "Mom, you did it. This is the turning point." Even as Vanessa stammered, trying to recover, I realized that this gala, meant to celebrate charity and advocacy, had become a courtroom in its own right. With the truth displayed, the documents verified, and witnesses present, her control over our lives had finally been shattered. Margaret, watching from the side, gave me a small, proud nod. The culmination of weeks of planning, fear, and strategy had led to this moment. The confrontation was no longer private, manipulable, or hidden. It was undeniable. And yet, I knew this was not the end. Vanessa would try to fight back, to manipulate, to twist perception. But now, armed with the truth, the evidence, and witnesses, we held power she could not erase. The next steps would involve the court, but the momentum was ours. For the first time in months, I felt a sense of relief, hope, and determination. The room waited tensely for Vanessa's next move, and as she struggled to regain composure, Gloria's voice remained steady. "Everyone deserves to know the truth, and tonight, you will." The air was thick with anticipation. The confrontation had begun, and no amount of deception or fear could stop the truth from prevailing. The room felt heavy with anticipation, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. I stood beside Gloria, feeling the combined weight of months of fear, betrayal, and planning. For once, the stakes were not abstract. They were concrete, immediate, and unavoidable. Everyone in the room sensed it. This was the moment when truth would no longer hide behind polite smiles or forged papers. Gloria's voice trembled slightly, but her eyes blazed with resolve. "My daughter has a pattern," she said, her tone unwavering. "This isn't the first time she's done this. In Seattle, she isolated her first husband, Thomas, and he died under suspicious circumstances." She stepped forward, holding the carefully preserved documents. Thomas's death certificate, investigator reports, emails, and letters that corroborated the dark story. The room went silent, the audience frozen in disbelief. People leaned forward in their seats, eyes wide. This was no longer just a family dispute. It was a revelation of manipulation, abuse, and potential murder. Richard's face turned pale. He made a move toward the door, perhaps thinking he could escape, but Margaret was ready. With a subtle nod, 2 uniformed police detectives stepped from the back, blocking the exits. "Vanessa Clark, Richard Morrison," Detective Santos announced, his voice cutting through the stunned silence. "You are under investigation for elder fraud, conspiracy, and in Vanessa Clark's case, possible homicide." Vanessa's composure crumbled entirely, her face twisted with rage and panic. "Michael, tell them your mother is confused, forgetful," she shouted, trying to regain control, but it was too late. The room was no longer hers to manipulate. Michael rose from his seat, holding the lab report in front of him like a shield. "You've been drugging me, Vanessa," he said, his voice steady, though his hands trembled slightly. "For months, making me docile so I'd sign whatever you wanted. I trusted you, and you betrayed us all." Gasps filled the room as he laid out the evidence, step by step: the benzodiazepines, the forged psychiatric evaluation, the plans for the property transfer, the memory care facility brochures, and the psychological manipulation of our family. Every piece of the puzzle fell into place before the eyes of everyone present. Even Dr. Thornton, the psychiatrist whose assessment had been the linchpin of Vanessa's plan, was in the room, unknowingly invited by Margaret. When confronted, he faltered. "Mrs. Clark paid me to write that evaluation regardless of the results," he admitted, eyes wide, realizing he was cornered. The authority he once wielded as a medical professional dissolved instantly in the light of truth. Meanwhile, Emma and Jake were safely with Patricia in a nearby room, shielded from the chaos but listening to every word through the open door. Their small hands gripped each other nervously, eyes wide, as the story unfolded. As the police escorted Vanessa and her father out, Vanessa screamed, her voice shrill and bitter. "You were supposed to be easy, just a lonely old widow nobody would miss." But I stood tall, feeling a strange serenity amidst the chaos. I was surrounded by those who mattered: my son, my grandchildren, Gloria, Patricia, and even strangers from the community who now understood the gravity of what had been happening. Emma and Jake ran into my arms, wrapping me in a hug that spoke more than words ever could. In the weeks that followed, the consequences were swift and decisive. Vanessa was charged with elder fraud, conspiracy, and the investigation into Thomas's death was reopened. Richard faced fraud charges for his complicity. Gloria received immunity for her cooperation and slowly became a trusted friend. Dr. Thornton lost his medical license for his role in the fraudulent evaluation. Michael filed for divorce, securing full custody of Emma and Jake. My $50,000 down payment gift, which Vanessa had tried to twist into leverage, was legally protected and returned. Using that money, I launched a foundation dedicated to preventing elder abuse, turning the pain and betrayal I endured into a force for good. 3 months later, I found myself in Michael's living room, the same room captured in that haunting Christmas photo. But this time, the atmosphere was warm, filled with laughter and love. Michael sat beside me, Emma curled in my lap, Jake leaning against my shoulder, Gloria nearby chatting with Patricia, and new friends from my advocacy network mingling with the family. Emma looked up at me, her eyes bright and curious. "Grandma, tell us the story again about how you solved the mystery," she asked, tugging gently at my hand. I smiled, my heart full, and began. "Well, it all started when I wasn't invited to Christmas." Michael squeezed my hand, his eyes glistening with gratitude. "And it ended with the strongest woman I know showing me what real family means." I realized in that moment that my purpose had shifted. The excluded Christmas, the fear, and the manipulation had all led to this: a mission to help others recognize and escape financial abuse, a way to turn personal pain into empowerment. The phone buzzed on the coffee table. A message from another woman appeared. "Susan, I saw your story in the news. My daughter-in-law is doing the same thing to me. Can you help?" I smiled, feeling the weight of my experience transform into action. I typed back without hesitation, "Absolutely. You're not alone anymore." In that moment, I knew that the trauma of one Christmas had become a lifetime of purpose. I was no longer just a survivor. I was a beacon for others trapped in silence and manipulation. And as I looked around the room at the love surrounding me, Michael, Emma, Jake, Patricia, Gloria, and our new friends, I understood fully. Justice had been served, and redemption was not just mine, but ours. If you found strength and hope in my story, make sure to subscribe to the channel. You're never alone, and together we can uncover the truth and stand strong against manipulation and abuse.